All right, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chris Matthews, and I want to welcome you all and thank you for tuning in to the UMP, better known as the Universal Mindset Podcast. Here on this podcast, we're here to talk about the ways of growth and development, enlightenment, ways to overcome self-hate, doubt, and all of your fears. I am also here to coach you and teach you on the best possible ways to love yourself in order to love and inspire others so that they may do the same for someone else. Before we get started, I want to thank all of my people who went to the UMP fan page on the Facebook and clicked that like button. As of now, we have 27, I believe, likes, but please keep in mind that this is a brand new podcast venture, and we look forward to all of your support, likes, shares, comments, and subscriptions. With your help, you will help the UMP grow as it should to touch the many lives that we're looking to touch. We're looking to have at least 1 million subscribers by within a year, actually. That's a small goal for us, I'd like to say. I want to give a verbal congratulations to John Bulwer. John was the 10th person to like our fan page on Facebook, and he won a $25 Apple gift card. Now, please be aware that we will have more frequent prize giveaways coming up soon for those who participate in those drawings. You're definitely going to want to be sticking around and staying updated on our page because we're going to have nice giveaway prizes. This is going to be an awesome podcast with great messages, interviews, and a plethora of excellent strategies for facing everyday challenges. The last thing before we do actually get started within the episode, the UMP does have a call-in number. So for those who listen to the stream, the live stream, once we have at least 1,000 followers on YouTube, we will be able to stream live from there. But until then, we're gonna occasionally stream live via Facebook, where you will all be able to you'll all be able to call in and voice your opinions, seek help, advice, or whatever the topic is that we're discussing on that particular episode. So get your phones out and lock this number in. The number to dial is going to be 702-517-5041. Again, that number is 702-517-5041. If you don't get an answer, please try and call back. And if you still don't get an answer, you can always text, and we'll get your question or your comment, whatever it is that you'd like to let us know or tell us or ask us. We'll get it via text message as well, and we'll get back to you as soon as possible, either during the show if we acknowledge it, or even after the show. Also, we do have an email address. So the email address is going to be theump2019@gmail.com. So again, it's theump2019@gmail.com. Okay, so today's episode, we're going to be talking about, we're pretty much going to be going straight to the point on learning how to live in the present moment and getting out of the past and stop being anxious for the future. So the name of this episode is Living in the Now. This is a sensitive subject to quite a few people because we all go through realizing where we aren't in life as opposed to where we should be and where we want to be. Mind you, my disclaimer, I'm not here to bash anyone or offend anyone. Anything that I ever speak on this podcast, I speak 100% from experience, and I am only here to help based on knowledge, research, and given from great mentors that was given to me from these great mentors. So with that being said, I'm just going to dive straight into it. And there's a book that I want to discuss as far as living in the now. And this author, famous, awesome author by the name of Eckhart Tolle, everybody's heard of him. This book is hands down amazing. My personal opinion, it's amazing and inspiring. It's a #1 New York Times bestseller and over 5 million copies sold and counting. This book has helped me to see things in ways I couldn't have ever imagined. The Power of Now is the title of this book. This book has shown me that every minute spent worrying about the future or regretting the past is a minute lost, because really all one must live in is the present, which is the now. The Power of Now gives you actionable strategies to start living every minute as it occurs. Now, a lot of people go through life daily trying to figure out like why they always end up in horrible relationships, or why they just can't get along with most people they come across, why work sucks for them, and why life just seems so difficult rather than just simplistic and peaceful. I know for certain I've had my days and weeks, even months rather, of quote unquote downhill luck, and it's no fun whatsoever. I used to walk around so angry and bitter, just mad at the world because I hated the way that my life was. When I was younger, my parents had divorced. It affected me a great deal. My dad didn't even rear me on how to be a real man, and so that took a horrible nosedive on my relationships. Living with my mom and the way that she was, it was a total nightmare for me. I couldn't wait to just get out from under her roof. I just couldn't do it anymore. My mom, every time I can remember, she was always so serious and angry and just overboard dramatic about everything. And that was my personal opinion. I'm not going to say that that's how she is as a person, but that was just my point of view. That's how I took it. I was homeschooled, and I greatly appreciate that, because this educational system and the way that it's too many personalities in one place, and we're not reared. Children are not reared the way that they really should be. So for me, I was an introvert. I'm still pretty much an introvert, but I'm learning to kind of reverse that role. But for me, I couldn't do the public school thing. I hated it so much. So I do appreciate being homeschooled. But even with that, because like I said, how my mom was, it was like a 12-year boot camp, because I was even doing schoolwork on Saturdays and Sundays. So it was horrible for me. I really didn't enjoy it as much as I thought that I would, or as much as I thought that I wanted to. I also had my older brother there, but our relationship was so on and off, night and day. So he was basically like a joke toward me. So I really hated my life for quite a few years. My mom has said horrible things to me when I was much younger, and to this day, she would swear she didn't say it, or she just didn't remember, or act like she doesn't remember. But I don't even mention it to her to avoid negativity. But these are just some of the things that I realized that affected my life going forward into adulthood. These things that I now know that I never had to let affect me at that moment. The actual happening was over with. I didn't have to hold on to that. public school, like I just mentioned, it was a horrible experience for me. I would never want to repeat that time in my life again. And it was always like a fear or a nightmare having to repeat that middle and high school life all over again, because like I said, it was just total torture. I had no friends, I always got into fights, got made fun of, and I had not one girlfriend until I became 18 years old. And even that was kind of like a fluke. And it was a total unprepared experience for me. And not having a girlfriend until the age of 18 in our society, you know, I'm not gonna just say that's a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, but if your mindset is prepared for it. But the way our society is now, a girlfriend until the age of 18, no. It was horrible. So jumping ahead into my 30s, I'm 32 now, and I'm good there in that area. But jumping ahead to my 30s, I still dealt with a lot of friction because of that resistance going against the grain. It was bad for me. Self-created circumstances, I will say that. And I'm mature enough to accept that responsibility and see the things that I want to change and make better for myself. And while doing that, I began to take actual time to start investing within myself. So for instance, getting paid weekly, every paycheck I received, I would buy at least 1 to 3 books off of Amazon. I started goal setting for myself. Like I would start small by setting myself a 1-week goal to read a book. Taking the bus to and from work, I had ample time to read on my way there. So I would read a chapter on my way there, and I'd read a chapter on my way back. With this podcast that I'm doing, I decided to invest in the equipment that I have now to start this podcast. I bought myself 3 mics and a laptop, and now with this, the sky's the limit. I want to give a shout out to Facebook name Ados Dunn, ADOSDUNN. If you do have time, have a chance to go find him, add him. He has great content on his podcast, and I appreciate what he told me. When I told him I was looking to start a podcast, he said he'd give me any type of feedback and information that he could as far as stepping out, branching out, and actually doing this. So I appreciate him. I told him I had 1 mic and a laptop, and he said, "You got everything you need. Start." So that's what I started to do. I started gathering my notes and my research and started doing everything that I needed to do as far as that. And everything it's golden. So like I said, the sky's the limit. So taking the time to invest within myself has introduced me to a wide variety of people on Facebook that have phenomenal skill sets and resources that I am very appreciative of finding out as far as these people. And these people have actually reached out to me and wanted to help me grow the UMP. So just because you hear my voice, this is just the beginning of it. So there's going to be a lot of more voices that you are going to hear coming in the future, even though we're talking about not living in the future. But, you know, there's going to be a lot of more people that are going to be investing their time and their resources here with me to make this this podcast grow into a much bigger thing than what it is right now. This is just going to be the foundation of it. But again, not to digress too much, investing. It's taken it's introduced me to a lot of great people and a lot of great authors that have great best-selling titles, such as The Power of Now, excuse me. So far, that's my #1 in my top 5. One of my favorite quotes from the author is when he says, Realize deeply that the present moment is all you have. Make the now the primary focus of your life. When I read that, I took a minute to stop and think about just how grateful I am to be alive and where I was at that precise moment. I started to think about having my wife, my daughter, my beautiful 1-year-old daughter, and just life, period. It wasn't until I read that book that I was truly able to see just how much I was living outside of myself, living in the past, trying to expeditiously get to the future in hopes that, life would get better when that certain goal was achieved or when that certain amount of money was made. And, that's how we always think. We're always thinking like, when I get this particular boyfriend or girlfriend, when I get this particular car or this house or this type of job, then life will be better for me. That mind state, that mental mind state of living is what is hindering us from truly advancing towards the path of where we all along are trying so desperately to get to. And people cannot see that where they're trying to get to is now, right now. And there are 3 things that we must come to understand and accept. Now, understanding is one thing and accepting is another. If you cannot accept what you understand, it's pointless, absolutely null and void. So you might as well just quit there. So these 3 very important things that I've learned based off Eckhart Tolle's book is, number 1, life is just a series of present moments. Number 2, all pain is a result of the things that you cannot change. And number 3, you can free yourself from pain by constantly observing your mind and not judging your thoughts. That's a wonderful thing, and we're definitely going to get into that. So I just briefly want to explain each of these topics that'll, it'll go more in depth. It'll be a brief, but it'll be a lot more in depth so you can get an understanding of where I'm coming from. And a lot of you all, you have been here. This feeling, whether you know exactly what it is that I'm going to say, what I'm talking about, or if you have a sense of this feeling, but you can't just quite grasp exactly what it is. So, we'll just go ahead and get right into it. Number 1, our life, like I said, is a series of present moments. Now, for example, if I asked 100 people to name 2 most common bad feelings that they can think of, 99% of them would probably respond with regret and anxiety. The reason that we regret and worry about a lot of things lies in the way our minds work. The constant stream of consciousness and thoughts in our head, which plays 24/7 in our heads, is mostly preoccupied with 2 things, the past and the future. Now, like I stated earlier, the way that our minds work, we're always in the past, thinking about the past because of what has happened to us or what we have done. So that's where that regret and that anxiety comes in at. Whether you've been molested or raped or beat up or somebody robbed you or you've been made fun of or you have done something in your life that, you regret, you really hurt somebody. The way our mind works, it plays 24/7 over and over and over and over in our head, thinking about that past or thinking about, like I mentioned earlier, if I can have this person or get this thing or have this job, something like that. That's where our mind is always at, the past and the future. So say, for instance, when you wake up 10 minutes too late in the morning, what's the first thing you're going to think? You're going to say to yourself, oh shit, I overslept. I wish I hadn't hit the snooze button. Closely followed by, now I'm going to be late for work. When I get there, my boss is going to be yelling at me. He's going to be hard on me. I can get a suspension. I can get a write-up, verbal warning, anything. And all these trickling effect, like the domino effect of thoughts, just start trickling in the mind, out of the mouth, into your life, which is your blank canvas. And you create that. self-created circumstances, and now you've ruined at least the first half of your day. So the author explains in his book that the only important time is now, and that's the time that we least think about. The reason only the present matters, the reason that the present matters only is because that's where everything happens. And again, explaining that situation in the past, when that situation, good or bad, no matter what it is, when it happened in that past moment, it was now. And so we need to move forward and be in the now and take pride. We need to realize that time is not precious. What's precious is the now, because that's the only thing that we have. So when you think about it, the past is nothing more than all present moments that have gone by. And the future is just a collection of present moments waiting to arrive. So you're waiting on something to arrive. You're spending your time and your thought on future when you could be spending time now. You're not going to be sitting here at your daughter or your son's birthday party in the midst of the birthday party thinking about how you can't wait to spend time, or if they're 1 year old, you're not going to be sitting here enjoying their 1-year-old birthday party thinking about, man, I can't wait till the 2-year birthday party comes. No, you're going to be focusing on right now. That's what you need to do. And if you're not doing that, again, that's what you need to do. So therefore, living in any other moment other than the present is absolutely useless. And you need to grasp that and apply that example that I made, apply that with everything that you've thought about, everything that you do think about. When you're thinking about that future moment, stop, cut it off, get into the now. That's how you're going to create peace for yourself. All of these physical, mental ailments, these illnesses, all these things that you cause upon yourself is because you're constantly in the past and you're constantly in the future, and you need to be in the now. If the task is at hand for you to, hand in a research paper in 14 days, neither regretting this all the time that you have procrastinated thus far, nor worrying about the big workload that's to come ahead, it's not going to get you there any faster. It's not, you can't do anything about that. That's an uncontrollable situation. So either you're going to focus on that, ride the wave, don't go against the grain of it, or if you don't want anything to do with it, get up and leave. Just get it totally out of your system, get away from it. But if you start solving the first tiny problem, as it comes up with an outline, peace, it's all downhill from there. So moving right along, number 2, any pain that you feel results from resisting the things that you cannot change. Stoicism, if I'm saying that correctly, it explains that the only pain that you really suffer from is the pain that you create yourself. Now, the author argues that pain is nothing more than a result of you resisting to all the things that you cannot change. And that's kind of what I was, building up to. All of this pain, you created yourself. If you cannot control a situation, do not try to control that situation. It's uncontrollable for a reason. You need to leave that alone. If you can control it, try to control it, but that gives you no room to, act unaccordingly, using your anger or getting immature with your emotions, because you're choosing to stay in that situation and deal with it. So if you're going to do that, deal with it accordingly. Man up, woman up, be mature enough to handle it like an adult. We think a lot about the future and the past, but we can only live in the present and have therefore no means to change many things from the other two that we're unhappy about. So, like my situation, when I was young and I was going through everything that I was going through, I went through it. So either I can't remember, honestly, either I went through it or, I got away from it. But I know when I did go through a lot of things, it created anger because I didn't know how to deal with it at that point in time. I was so young and I was immature. I wasn't trying to, seek help and invest in myself. I was too busy trying to fix things on my own. And there was a lot of things that I could not fix on my own. So, like I said, moving forward all these years, starting to invest in myself and starting to read these books and look at these videos to inspire myself, I found out that I want to inspire other people. I'm good with communication. I'm good with my voice, and this is my gift. And so how do I use my gift? There are steps. There's a processes in order to get to this point. So this is one of the steps that I had to take. Investing in myself, starting to read these books, and in the process of reading these books and looking at these motivational speakers that inspired me greatly, I came across Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now. And now I'm able to be here on my own podcast and explain this to other people who are looking to do the same thing and help someone else in return. So again, we think a lot about the past and the future, and we can only live in the present. So we don't have means to change anything from the past or the future. But the now, that's what we can take care of, and that's what we need to focus on. We then fill in the gaps between these by developing a resistance to things, which is what we experience as pain, whether it's physical or psychological. And when you're angry, that anger usually makes you think and act less rational, which often results in worse situations and thus more pain. But it's really all in your head. And that's exactly what I was talking about as far as my situation. So I'm pretty sure that everybody that is listening to this podcast, you've been in this situation before, and you need to know that all of this stuff, it's all in your head. It's just like looking at a canvas. Bob Ross, for instance, that's one of my favorite painters I used to watch when I was younger, but he has this blank white canvas, and everything, this wonderful picture that you see him paint, when that picture is painted, and the best part for me is not actually when he's completed with it. It's looking at the fine details and looking at the unfinished work that he's in the midst of doing. That's what's so amazing to me. When he's actually working on that painting. This is exactly what we're doing on a negative side. Again, when you're angry, that anger usually makes you think and act less rational. It often results in a worse situation, thus more pain. So when you use that anger because of these past situations or thinking about the future, you think about a good thing for the future, but the anger comes in because you're not in that good, positive mind state. You're only speaking about it, but you're in your now, but you're unconscious to your now, but you're still holding on to that negative. You're holding on to something negative, and you cannot do that. So you have to learn to let go, shift from that. And you can do that. Moving right on into number 3, you can free yourself from pain by constantly observing your mind and not judging your thoughts. How can you get rid of the pain? Well, Toll recommends 2 things. Number 1 is something that I read, and I got a real kick out of it because it actually works. And so you should definitely try this. So number 1, constantly ask yourself, what will my next thought be? What will my next thought be? What will my next thought be? Number 2, stop judging your thoughts and urges. Now, the first strategy is based on an effect from physics called the quantum Zeno effect. If you have not heard of that, I'm going to explain a little bit of it, but I encourage you strongly to go and YouTube and Google it. It's fun to learn about. So the quantum Zeno effect says that you can freeze any system in its current state by constantly observing it. Ask yourself this question over and over. It'll usually delay your actual next thought, thus giving you enough time to realize how much time you actually spend in autopilot, if you understand what I'm saying. This way you can start interrupting your mind and thus separating from it. Now, for example, if you are angry, you're in the midst of an argument or a fight with your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, boss, coworker, whatever the case may be, you're in the middle of that moment. What's the next thing that's going to come to your mind? 9 times out of 10, you're going to come out and say something else that's smart aleck or, irrational because of that anger. Like I said in number 2, if you stop and you ask yourself, what will my next thought be? What will my next thought be? You are literally stopping that actual next thought to give yourself time to say, kind of like pause and step outside of yourself, turn around, analyze yourself, and see the situation from the outer appearance of where you're at. Gain your sense of rationale and, make a better decision. Then you can step back in it, press play, and you can handle it the way that you should. So when you do that, like I said, you can start interrupting your mind and you separate from your mind. And when you separate your mind, it's a powerful thing because you're able to handle your situations better, which is going to be a much better outcome for yourself as a whole. The second method is meant to help you listen to your body and learn to accept the constant nagging thoughts in your head about what you should be doing or not doing. So the next time you do wake up late for work, just listen to that voice that says you should have done better, but don't act on it. Notice it, see it, accept it, accept that it's there, but don't give in to its advice, because if you do that, it's going to start that irrational, angry thought. You know what I'm saying? So just know that you should have done better and apply yourself to do better the next go round. These 2 tools that you use will help you separate your body from your always on thought driven mind, after which you'll be in less pain because you resist the things that you can't change a lot less. Now, I have a friend who I constantly tell these things to just about every time that I talk to her as a frequent reminder. She finds herself in a repeating cycle of relationships. That's her issue. In the end, it ends up benefiting her 0% of the time. And people, I need for you to understand and again, accept the fact that new love relationships cannot free you from the pain that you suffer from. I myself went through 3 relationships in the beginning of my 4th, which is now my current relationship, my marriage, until I figured this out. Ladies and gentlemen, change must begin with self. If you ignore this effort to make change within yourself first, the progression with anything or anyone outside of you will be pointless, null and void, canceled out. Now, although this can be a very challenging situation because of the years of damage, it's still a very much simple mathematical equation. But in order to remain consistent, surround yourself with new type of people, better energy and much higher frequency. Low frequency can affect your energy and it can keep you suppressed, but only you can make that decision and choice to better yourself. As we come to a close, I want to thank all of my listeners for tuning in for our first podcast episode, Living in the Now. If you'd like to order Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now, which I strongly recommend, I will leave a link below. And if you have read this book already, please like and comment and let us know what you like best about it. I know he also mentioned a lot about the ego, and I'll be discussing more on that topic in another episode. And again, I want to thank you for tuning in. And if you like this first episode and would like to hear more content, please like, share, subscribe, and tell a friend about the UMP, better known as the Universal Mindset Podcast. Again, our call-in number is going to be 702-517-5041. The email address is going to be theump2019@gmail.com. I'm your host, Chris Matthews, and I will see you next time.